Tonight, businesses scramble to keep deliveries running, with postal workers still on strike. Headache and heartache for small Canadian companies.
It's really tough when it has such a huge impact on a small business like mine.
What's at stake for rural and remote communities?
Canada Post is still one of the largest companies in moving those goods to the final consumer.
My heart is really broken, not for the money, for the kids.
Swifties scam.
So I purchased 4 tickets from her, around $2,500.
The police probe after dozens allege their Taylor tickets fell through. Key fobs and the digital devices playing a leading role in Canada's car theft crisis.
Somebody came up with a solution and somebody canned it and put it on Amazon.
Urban development and its impact in historic districts.
We have to be deliberate about that change, or we're going to wake up in a city that doesn't look like anything we know.
And the extraordinary find in the Pacific Ocean.
I have never seen something like that.
The largest coral colony so immense it can be seen from space.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. There is growing fear within Canada's small business community of the financial hardships they will face so long as postal service remains shut down. Tens of thousands of employees are on the picket lines for the second straight day. The impact of this national strike already being felt, especially in small towns where store owners say it's hitting at the worst possible time. CTV's Colton Prale reports.
Over the next month, Sarah Lethbridge says her small business would normally make about 3/4 of its yearly sales. Now that may not happen.
They want it in time for Christmas, and if they can't get it, they're not going to order it, so it's really tough.
With 55,000 Canada Post workers striking across the country, Lethbridge's business, which relies primarily on letter mail service, has ground to a halt. And in her rural Eastern Ontario town, courier options are scarce. It means stopping delivery or spending an hour driving to and from shipping depots in Ottawa to keep business going.
My time is probably more valuable than anything else because I work full-time and I have 2 kids. So it's really the time that I'm losing, and then it could be more expensive.
According to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, 3/4 of small businesses are negatively impacted by the strike, especially those in remote locations.
Estimates are that e-commerce is going to jump another 10 points this Christmas. Canada Post is still one of the largest companies in moving those goods to the final consumer, especially in rural and remote communities.
Canada Post and the union were back at the bargaining table Saturday, but both sides remain far apart on wages and plans for daily parcel delivery.
The best way to get to collective agreements is having negotiated at the bargaining table. Arbitrated contracts only lead to many issues being left behind.
So far, the Labour Minister has opposed mandating postal workers back on the job, like in the port and rail disruptions earlier this year. Instead, Ottawa is sending its top mediators to the tables beginning Monday, hoping that will speed up discussions. Heather.
Colton, thank you. Dock workers at the Port of Montreal are back to work. The return comes after more than a week of labor disputes that led to a brief lockout. The work stoppage was interrupted earlier this week when the federal government ordered thousands of employees back to work and moved all negotiations into binding arbitration. Montreal's port moves about $400 million worth of goods each day. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour entered its 3rd night in Toronto, expected to be the highest-grossing live music event in the city's history, with an economic impact estimated at $282 million. But there are people looking to take advantage of Swifties hoping to see the star on stage. Police are reporting dozens of ticket scams. And tonight, CTV's Kamal Karamali looks into one that appears to have targeted hundreds of people. All in, they might be out hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The lineup for the lucky.
We're very much the lucky one.
To see Taylor Swift.
Hi, Taylor!
Annette and her daughter Emily, though,
Someday.
are on the outside. This was a concert they were supposed to be attending.
I was just scammed. I mean, I was embarrassed. I was Beside myself.
They paid $2,500 to a woman they say was part of their community in Burlington, Ontario, a local reseller many of them trusted. They were told she had access to corporate tickets through a third party that would be sent days before the concert, but when that time came, those tickets never arrived.
I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to provide that for them.
The same story now being shared by so many others.
My heart is, it's really broken, not for the money, for the kids.
They've now started a shared online document, the number of alleged victims reaching nearly 400 people, collectively claiming to be out roughly $300,000.
The scope of it is absolutely massive. This is across multiple provinces. There are people in the States.
We reached out to the woman who's allegedly behind the scam. She said the third party who promised her the tickets disappeared.
I've already made a report to the police 2 days ago at 9 a.m. in the morning.
And
so we'll just wait for them to contact me.
Until then, heartbroken mothers and daughters
It's okay.
learning forgiveness along with many other lessons.
Sometimes, the person who you think you can trust, there's somebody out there who maybe has another agenda.
Halton Regional Police said it's investigating this incident, with multiple reports coming in yesterday reminding the public to only buy tickets from legitimate resale websites. Heather.
All right, Kamal, thank you. A revved-up car theft crisis is having an impact on Canada's reputation. It's putting more than $1 billion a year into the hands of organized crime. Tonight, CTV's John Woodward keys in on the renewed calls to crack down on high-tech tools, putting thieves in the driver's seat.
So what was that sound?
That's it sending its encoded signal to the car.
The sound of the radio wave sent by the key fob of my car. Trouble is, this generic key fob can be programmed to do the same thing.
These two are identical.
Right.
The key has been cloned by using high-tech devices intended for locksmiths, but that have fallen into the hands of thieves. Police say that's now the leading method to steal cars, adding up to more than $1.5 billion in losses last year. The device is easily available. W5 bought one online and used it on a car in under an hour. A sign radio expert Michael Walker says that thieves have the upper hand.
Somebody came up with a solution and somebody canned it. And put it on Amazon.
And so is the genie out of the bottle here?
Yes, certainly.
Unacceptable, says NDP MP Brian Massey, who is calling for car companies to increase their security.
But if they're not secure, there has to be some responsibility on the car companies about, creating expectations for consumers that they can't deliver on.
Some manufacturers offering app-based solutions to immobilize a car, even if a cloned key is there. But that's only for new cars. Updating older cars is still a challenge. The federal government adding new charges to the criminal code, including possessing these devices with intent to steal. Locksmiths propose going further, saying just having one without being a licensed locksmith should be an offense under provincial rules. Ontario not ruling that out.
We're here to listen. We're here to listen to stakeholders that have good ideas.
Through it all, Walker warns the restrictions shouldn't be so severe they stifle innovation.
If we shut that down here and schools can't learn and break things and learn things, then where are we going to be in 15 years?
Although in this area, it seems the thieves are the most innovative of all. John Woodward, CTV News.
A devastating fire has destroyed a popular resort hotel just 2 hours outside of Montreal. 5 fire departments responded to Lac Carling Hotel shortly after flames erupted last night. The cause of the fire is still unknown. Officials say a number of guests were believed to be inside at the time, but no injuries have been reported so far. A widespread investigation is currently underway. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wrapped up meetings with 21 leaders at the Apec summit, securing a new free trade deal with Indonesia. But there's little clarity on what future trade relations with Canada's biggest ally, the U.S., may hold. CTV's Judy Trin reports from Lima, Peru.
With every handshake at Apec, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau positions Canada as a reliable trading partner. He's also providing advice to other leaders on how to counter the America First policies of incoming President Donald Trump.
People
know a little more about what to expect and are leaning on examples of countries like Canada that managed to navigate successfully through win-win renegotiations of our most important trade deal.
President Joe Biden is here, but he can do little to stop Trump from imposing blanket 10% tariffs on all imports. That threat could divide countries. The premiers of Alberta and Ontario are calling for the federal government to abandon a continental approach in dealing with Trump because Mexico hasn't put tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles like the U.S. and Canada.
They're undercutting the market. So what I'm proposing to the federal government, we do a bilateral trade deal with the U.S.
There are concerns around the level of Chinese investment in Mexico that I think need to be addressed, but I am hopeful that we're going to be able to work constructively.
Trudeau did have a brief exchange with China's leader before Xi Jinping met with Biden for the last time on the margins of Apec.
We haven't always agreed, but our conversations have always been candid and always been frank.
Nations are concerned they may have to choose between the two economic superpowers. The Prime Minister will now shift his focus to the G20 in Brazil, where security matters will be front and center. Trudeau says he will continue advocating for military support for Ukraine in its war against Russia. Judy Trin, CTV News, Lima, Peru.
Families in northern India are suffering through a tragic loss after a deadly fire tore through a hospital's neonatal intensive care unit. The fire broke out Friday and spread quickly through a ward where 55 infants were being treated. 10 newborn babies died from burns and suffocation, and 16 others were injured. The cause of the fire is not yet known. 10 people were killed and 20 wounded in an Israeli airstrike on a school in Gaza. Palestinian officials say the school was sheltering displaced civilians, while Israel's military says it housed a Hamas command center. Meantime, Israel is intensifying its ground and air offensive against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. At least 2 people were killed when Israeli warplanes pounded Beirut's suburbs for a 5th consecutive day. The strikes come as a rocket barrage by Hezbollah damaged a synagogue and injured 2 people in the Israeli city of Haifa. U.S. health officials have confirmed a new form of Mpox within its borders. The disease was identified in a traveler returning from Eastern Africa who is now undergoing treatment in California. Since September, more than 3,000 cases have been confirmed globally. This new form was first identified in Eastern Congo. There are fresh warnings over research collaborations with China. A new House of Commons report recommends Ottawa end all government collaborations in sensitive technology research areas. CTV's Alex Karpa explains.
It's a step that could further strain Canada's relations with China.
This is the sensible approach to take.
The report highlighting a list of 12 recommendations saying China's actions through foreign interference and espionage have become, quote, increasingly assertive. And while it highlights the importance of collaboration for science, the report indicates it does not, quote, supersede the need for the government to protect the national security of Canada.
China has deeply infiltrated our entire research infrastructure in this country and is exfiltrating data, is stealing, is manipulating our research, is stealing our intellectual property and taking it for itself in ways that are unauthorized. That this is not a trusted partner.
This report was prompted by incidents at Canada's National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg, when in 2019, 2 Chinese Canadians were escorted out and eventually fired over security breaches. Tightening security at the lab and other government entities is recommended in the report.
Are we going to stigmatize everybody because of the actions of 2 individuals? And are we going to damage leases collaborations that could potentially yield positive results for Canadians?
Others are wondering how Canada can keep tabs on China if all ties are cut.
There is a risk in cutting off all collaboration that we actually fail to gain intelligence about important new matters that we might otherwise have found out about if the collaborations had still existed.
The report itself is being reviewed, and the government has until March 2025 to respond to the list of recommendations. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Coming up, the push to preserve history in Atlantic Canada.
We're going to wake up in a city that doesn't look like anything we know.
Measuring urban change and its ability to erase the past. Plus, hidden for hundreds of years, scientists discover the world's largest coral. Halifax is one of Canada's fastest growing cities, but a new snapshot shows over the decades, the vast majority of heritage properties have slowly vanished to fires, demolition, or redevelopment. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on the push to preserve a rich history.
St. Mary's University archaeologist Jonathan Fowler is sounding an alarm with a new study. Fowler says Halifax's historic architecture is slowly being wiped away as the city continues to grow.
You look at the maps and you see the old Halifax of 1878, but we've layered that over the modern city. So you can compare what was there and what's there now.
Fowler has unveiled new research that measures urban change as an academic exercise.
Cities have always been about change. Cities are very dynamic. That's okay. But in a historic city like Halifax, we have to be deliberate about that change. We have to be intelligent about it, or we're going to wake up in a city that doesn't look like anything we know.
Many of the older structures have disappeared. On this map, the red buildings are gone and the green buildings are still standing. According to Fowler, Halifax had almost 9,000 buildings in 1878. Since then, only 1,143 have survived. That's an attrition rate of 87.2%. Historian Blair Bede hopes these findings serve as a wake-up call to help preserve Halifax's history that dates back centuries.
We've just not evaluated the buildings to say which ones are old and which ones are historically old that we want to keep.
There have been many changes over the decades, but it should be noted Halifax remains a city rich in history.
And there's a lot preserved in certain places. The rate of attrition or the attrition across the city has not been uniform.
Some parts of the city remain unchanged. Other areas have been torn down and rebuilt. Fowler hopes his study leads to a preservation of some of the remaining older properties. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still ahead, less than 24 hours until kickoff. Blue meets double blue in the 111th Grey Cup. We're on the eve of Canada's biggest football showdown featuring the Toronto Argonauts and Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Some experts are calling the 111th Grey Cup game a mismatch. Here's TSN's Farhan Lalji on how the teams stack up and what's on the line.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be heavy favorites over the Toronto Argos in the Grey Cup game on Sunday. And the biggest reason for that is the quarterback situation. In Zach Collaros, you've got a perennial star in this league. And on Toronto's side, they will be without their star in Chad Kelly, who broke his leg in the East Division Finals. Nick Arbuckle will get the start in this game. Now, the Argos are no strangers to playing without Chad Kelly, who was suspended for the first half of the season. And they were 5-5 in games without Kelly this year. The current replacement, Nick Arbuckle, is a seasoned CFL veteran. He completed 65% of his passes and threw for close to 800 yards. But despite all of that, the big gap in terms of what the experts believe will decide this game is at the quarterback position. Now, as far as the Bombers are concerned, they're trying to cement themselves as a dynasty. It is no small feat that this is their 5th consecutive trip to the Grey Cup, but they also have lost the last 2, and they don't want to be that team that got to a Grey Cup game 5 times and lost more than half of those. So certainly much is on the line for both of these teams. When you look at both of them, both are outstanding in a number of different areas. They've got strong receiving cores, strong offensive lines, and both play elite defensive football. But it comes down to quarterback play, and that is why Winnipeg is the favorites going into Sunday's game. Heather?
A lot on the line. Thanks, Farhan. Well, a fight for the ages last night as Jake Paul unanimously defeated boxing legend Mike Tyson.
Oh, left hook! Triple left hook by Paul!
The mega showcase was so large that thousands reported streaming delays as the fight marked the biggest live sports event ever for Netflix. Millions of fans tuned in, and though there was no Tyson knockout, the fight still lasted 8 rounds, with Paul being named victorious. Tyson says if given the chance, he'd do it all over again. Well, the United States Postal Service is releasing a stamp in honor of beloved Golden Girls actor Betty White. The stamp is a digital illustration of White based on a portrait photo of her from 2010. White passed away in 2021, 3 weeks prior to her 100th birthday. The release date for the stamp has not yet been announced. After the break, a rare and beautiful undersea discovery.
There are probably 1 billion polyps in that coral that has been growing for centuries. So the fact that it's just not a reef, but a single colony of coral is absolutely astonishing.
The aquatic wonder world that could hold the key to healthier oceans. A deep dive expedition in the Pacific Ocean led to the gigantic discovery of a sea creature growing in secret for centuries. The fascinating find blew scientists out of the water in what first appeared to look like a shipwreck from the surface. CTV's Kathy Lee has the details.
This vibrant underwater garden dwarfs the scientists who found it. Bigger than a blue whale, the standalone coral is the world's largest and can be seen from space.
I was looking and a smile came to my face because it was wonderful, and I realized that it was something unique.
The unique rock-looking animal pulsates with marine life and color just off the Solomon Islands.
There are probably 1 billion polyps in that coral that has been growing for centuries. So the fact that it's just not a reef, but a single colony of coral is absolutely astonishing.
Astonishing because it's healthy and thriving at a time when many of the world's coral reefs are bleached under marine heat waves.
About 3/4 of coral reef areas in the world have been affected. Something like 74 countries have reported bleaching since February of last year. Climate change is the main threat to coral reefs.
But within the grim reality, this extraordinary discovery, though rare,
I have never seen something like that.
is a sign of hope.
What it really does is point to the fact that there are wonders left in the world for us to find.
And with this colossal find, if scientists could understand how the mega coral survived for hundreds of years, it could unlock the answers to help other vulnerable corals in the world. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
An incredible discovery. That is our newscast for this Saturday night. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.